One of, if not the biggest pain factor in your life currently is the addiction that you're harboring inside yourself. Whether it's consumption of substance or the more commonly nowadays, that is digital media consumption, whether it's pornographic material or it is YouTube videos on Instagram reels or scrolling through Reddit at 3 a.m. in the morning, whatever it is, it's all an addiction. And now I could definitely explain to you all the dopamine stuff and all the sciencey shit, but that is not going to cut it. Because you already know the advice, you already know the stuff, you already know what you should do. But the thing is, these addictions are still the one driving your life instead of you. So, today I'll exactly show you how to get rid of any addiction. You just have to trust me and just apply this framework that I will show you, and you are rid of any addiction that you possibly might have. Now, I am Ankush and I help people get rid of the modern day distractions as well as teach them how to focus. So, let's get started with addiction. Now, we'll go over this part by part, and that is why I have already divided the graph into three parts: part 1, part 2, and part 3. Before that, we need to understand what graph is it and the variables that are involved. On the x-axis, we are having time, and on the y-axis, we are having QOL, which stands for quality of life, which means the overall quality and the value of your life that you currently feel. For example, how much happy do you feel, how much satisfied do you feel, how much fulfilled do you feel, how much energetic do you feel, and etc. All of these terms together can be categorized as quality of life. Now, let us start with part 1. In the part 1, at first, notice this thing, that there is a point. This point is your baseline happiness before you start falling into any kind of addiction. This means that this is the level where you were previously before you were addicted. Let's say you were studying for 12 hours a day before you got hooked onto YouTube shorts. So that 12 hours of day studying is your baseline. And as we can see, after you are addicted, you will just be declining, which means the 12 hours a day of studying will now become 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, and then none. And the entirety of your day will just be replaced by your addictions. And there are definitely nested addictions because YouTube shorts will lead you to Instagram reels, which will lead you to Reddit or something like that. There are nested loops inside the addictions themselves. So, what you have to understand is that we strive for the baseline happiness when we are addicted. This means that the motivation for your bad habits, the motivation for each and every YouTube session, the motivation for each and every session of the bad habit that you have is the fact that you want to get to the previous level of happiness. But the caveat is, instead of going up, you are actually going down. And here, as you can see, if we highlight the top points of each of the peaks, then we get a straight line. And that is the straight line that is plotted here. So this means after each and every session, you will continue to progressively go downwards instead of going upwards, which is your intention of the session. Now be sure to make notes and as well as draw the graph, and keep this in mind. Preferably write this down, that the reason that you want to do bad habit in that particular time, let's say at 4 p.m. you want to check YouTube, the reason you want to do this is because you want to get to a certain level of happiness that you previously had. You think, or more specifically, your brain thinks that if you perform the activity, where the activity is the bad habit, let's say watching YouTube at 4 p.m., if you perform that activity, you will get to the life, or you will get to the QOL factor that you previously had. But now we know that this is not true. In fact, you're not really getting upwards, you're going downwards in a straight line. So in the addiction phase, what happens is you go from the highest ever baseline that you previously had to the lowest ever. And this is the low point. And this is the point where people start thinking about quitting. Generally, a person wants to quit because he realizes the habit is no longer worth it, or is eating away their time, or is eating away their energy, or something like that. Whatever may be the cause of quitting, and for older guys it's like their spouse and all that. I have read so many books on addiction, and it's just this same story, like the spouse is not happy with the person who is addicted and all of the nonsense. Most of it does not apply to you if you are in the age range of my people, which is like 16 to about 22. It does not apply to you. Think straight. Why do you want to quit? You want to quit because you want to get a healthy lifestyle, you want to conserve your health, you want to conserve your wealth, you want to conserve your brain power so that you can put that into somewhere else and get more benefit. Without the reason, if you just think about quitting, it's never going to work. The reason being, you are not motivated in yourself. You have just heard the thing that, alright, this habit is bad and now I must quit it. You do not have that internal realization that I should quit because of X, because of Y. Until and unless you have that, you will never quit. And that's that. Now, most people do make it to this point where they have an idea of why they want to quit. And that is when they are stuck. And the simple reason is because they do not see any progress. Let's talk about a very famous niche, NoFap community. The NoFap community has put such a tremendous amount of effort in pedestalizing the habit of not fapping that it is very hard to do. And once you fail one day, it is very demoralizing because you feel like you have lost so much. And that is why they get stuck in the phase 2. This is stagnation. And the reason stagnation happens is because they are not sure how to quit, or they have absorbed too much material on quitting. Now let me be very clear. The stagnation looks like a straight line, but as we saw in the case of this addicted graph, it is not actually a straight line. Similarly, here too, it is not a straight line. What instead happens is they make some progress, but they quickly relapse. Relapse as in all of the habits, not just a particular habit like NoFap, because the relapse term is very common with NoFap. Now, they get up and they get down, and they get up and they get down, and the entire thing averages out to about straight line of their mean, which is absolute zero progress. That is why it is stagnation, which means they are actually making some progress towards quitting, but in reality what is happening is, let's say they spend 2 hours trying to quit YouTube and maybe reading books, maybe meditating, maybe doing studying or something like that. But what happens is the next 4 hours they watch YouTube. So it's like kind of like the system of checks and balances where everything is just balanced out at the end and they essentially have done no progress and their entire displacement is zero. Now after trials and tribulations, they somehow quit. And this somehow is a very different factor for each of the people. For example, let's say you are watching pornographic content and your parents suddenly walked in and found out. You are very likely to do it 100 times less in the future. Or let's say that you failed a very important test because instead of studying, you are just watching YouTube for 4 to 6 hours a day. That test could have gotten you into the best colleges of your entire country, but now you are stuck in a low level college because you failed that test because you watched the YouTube videos. You are likely to do it way less in the future because that is a very painful event in your life. If that painful event happens, and that is kind of like the shock treatment, you will feel like not doing the habit that caused you the pain because now you are aware of what the consequences is. Most of the people are not aware of the consequences of their bad habits, and not aware as in physically not aware. They are very aware about the ill effects on their physical health or on their mental health, but they are really not aware about the actual physical effects that they are experiencing themselves. Like it is very easy for us to read a study on YouTube Shorts and proclaim that alright, this is causing ADHD, this is causing short-term memory, and this is causing a wide variety of problems. Yeah, right. The literature supports it. It is correct. But until and unless you really watch yourself or someone you love go through that pain, you will never realize what the actual ADHD means, what the actual lack of attention span means. Let's say day by day you see the ill effects of those YouTube shorts or those Instagram reels on your cousin who is now not able to focus to what you are saying nowadays. How much impact would that have on you? That is what is physical awareness. instead of just the mental awareness of reading the research. Plenty of people have read the literature. Plenty of people have seen articles detailing why their bad habit is bad. But do you think that really imposes a kind of fear, a fear so great that they would not want to indulge in the bad habit? It's actually quite the contrary. The moment they find out that their bad habit is bad, the first thing they do is search for that bad habit because it's an escape room. It's literally the one thing comforting them, and they feel like it is comforting them, but in reality it is definitely not comforting them. It is kind of like it is filling the vacuum that never existed. It just creates the vacuum and it just fills it on its own, and that is why the user feels like, all right, it has cured some kind of thing inside of me. Now I'll give you an analogy to understand it better. Let's say this is the circle of your life and it is totally filled, right? Now what a bad habit does is it temporarily creates a vacuum on its own. So kind of like, let's say we erased kind of like 1/4 of your life. It created a vacuum because this much part of your life is unfilled. What it does is it fills it partially. It creates the vacuum on its own and then it fills it partially. And now you feel like, alright, something inside me has been filled. Let's say the circuit had 2 bulbs and now only one lit up. You would feel like the circuit is at least half complete, right? And that is the illusion that the bad habits put upon you. The moment you feel like this thing has actually contributed something in your life, it becomes a bad habit. And what does it do again? It makes another large gap. After making the large gap, it again fills up some portion of your life. Again, it continues the process and it fills up some portion of your life. And after some time, it just erases your entire damn life. Now, backtracking to the point where people actually quit, which is this point right here. In this point, people are usually faced with a very hard choice or kind of like a do or die situation. Like either continue for your entire life with this habit and live in a life of misery and guilt, or continue in a healthier life. People do choose, in fact, the healthier life, which goes up. Now, the point is that people underestimate how hard it is going to be. Because, notice this carefully. In the graph that I have drawn, the straight line of being addicted comes very aggressively down. But the straight line of after quitting goes up very non-aggressively or passively if you are using synonyms as compared to the line of addicted, because quitting something takes longer, and it is due to 2 reasons. Primary reason is that you have pedestalized this habit for so long and to such an extent that you feel you are not you without that habit. Like inside your mind there is a mental model. I am the guy who watches YouTube 4 hours a day. I am the guy who has XYZ addiction. And breaking that model takes a long while. The secondary reason is because whenever you are trying to break an habit, you are trying to work against your own brain, because you have already formed a habit by continuously repeating it throughout your entire life or however the period of addiction is. If you want to remove that, you have to rework so many things in your life, from your day-to-day schedule to your behaviors to your, let's say, digital home screen or your phone screen, or like putting color filters or blocking notifications or blocking the app or whatever. There are like a million billion things that you need to do. Like it's an exaggeration, but you get my point. Like there are 10 things to do if you want to really quit it, because you have to deconstruct how a habit is made and then reverse it in order to quit an habit. Now, if you have read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, then you probably already know how to form a habit. What you have to do is the exact opposite. For example, in his book, he said that make the habit as easy as possible to do. If you had to reverse it to break an addiction, you would make the habit as hard as possible to do. Like, for example, if you're habit is, let's say, watching pornographic content, then set up DNS level blocking, then set up an app blocker, then set up some kind of blocker in your browser, then give that password to a family member, or do set up like a 5 system process which does not allow you to access the material very easily. Because, and quote this, friction is the killer of habits. Now, let's talk about the rest of the graph. Once you have already quit the habit, like after you have done this and after you have gone through the journey of this, and it kind of looks like steps because it is a multi-step process, because each and every day feels like a challenge. It always feels like you want to do the habit, but you are in a tug of war with it, and it's totally alright. Now, after you have reached the boost point is when you will see a tremendous amount of benefit at once. And I'm not someone who will just say that, alright, after 90 days of no fap or after 90 days of not watching reels or anything like that. I will not give you the quantitative metric because it does not exist. It is variable. It can be 18 hours and 23 minutes from now. It can be 18 months and 23 years from now. Like, whatever I'm saying is crazy, but it kind of happens. It is very much person dependent. And once you reach the boost point, what happens is, remember the initial quality of life that we spoke about at the beginning of the video? You reach the same point here. And once you reach that point, your growth becomes exponential. By now you have probably already seen the exponential graph of self-improvement, like after a certain point your life becomes exponential and you get all the riches of the world, anything like that. But the key point here is to remember that the boost point allows you to reconnect with your past self. The past self who previously lost to the addiction, and now you are here with better armor, better gear to kill the demon again. And by boost point time, you will have not just quit the addiction, but you will have felt like, alright, why the heck did I have the addiction in the first place? Like when you are addicted, the addiction seems like the best thing in the world. When you are quitting, it seems like the worst thing in the world. When you are after quitting, it seems like very much of a tug of war to deal with the addiction. And once you are at the boost point, it feels like, what the hell was I even thinking doing the addiction? Why was I so stupid? And it is a realization that happens in retrospect, and it is not something that you can have right now. If you are addicted, you have to go to the boost point and realize it for yourself. After you cross the boost point is when your baseline of happiness will actually start to increase, provided you are doing good habits instead of other bad habits. And this applies to any of the bad habits in the entire damn world. So once you reach the boost point, you will understand that you have reached it, and from there you can continue to improve your life with the good habits. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was addiction cured. Now if you like this video, then definitely do all of the YouTube algorithm stuff, and if you really want to learn more about focus and not getting distracted in the modern day, then go and check out the link in the description, which will take you to my focus course. It is currently on a pre-sale because I'm building it, and the price will be doubled as soon as I release it. So go book your spot now. And with that, as always, start if you haven't already.